We're being recorded, and it's 6 o'clock. Let's begin the Brattleboro Planning Commission meeting. There's myself, a commissioner, and on Zoom, 3 commissioners presently, so we have a quorum. I feel like I haven't done this in a while. I've missed a couple meetings. Haven't been here in person in a few months. All right, let's address the minutes of our last meeting of April 7th. Is there a motion to do that?
I motion that we approve the minutes for April 7th, 2025.
All right, thanks, Gary. I will second. And then before we vote, are there any comments about the minutes? No? Okay. All those in favor of approving the minutes, please raise your hand. That's Dan, that's Lindsay, that's John, that's myself, and I heard Gary and I heard Bonnie. Okay, that's all 6 of us. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, yeah. Okay, on to announcements. I shared something a couple days ago. This was a topic that Gary wanted commissioners to look at. So that wasn't in the meeting's materials that Sue sent around, but I just tagged onto that email with this document that I wrote up for Gary with the links that he provided. Gary, do you want to say anything about it?
Well, I won't, speak on it long. It's very self-explanatory. It's just something brief that I looked upon for maybe that perhaps might be some interest down the line in the future, but in today's climate may not be something that's applicable now. But I would move Sue to elaborate a little bit more on it to just sum it up.
Yeah, so it's just it's a couple of articles on some sustainable building techniques. One which is 3D printed houses that are actually like fully recyclable if they get taken down. And I think there's a lab out of Maine that's working on those. Finding that they're standing up to the colder climates and whatnot. And then the other was another technology that's kind of Lego building. So I can't remember exactly what that was made of, but some new technologies that maybe will make it quicker to build housing. Not sure about cost yet.
And its durability, reliable sustainability. Also in that regards, I haven't gotten the cost yet comparison. But it's just something once we see where we're at in the future, could be taken under consideration, and people can get more information on that. I'll be getting in contact with the individuals on that and send that out as well.
Commissioners, do you have any questions or comments at this point on that topic? No? Okay. Well, thanks for sharing that around, Gary. And I don't know, let me know if there's any developments, and commissioners can think on it as time goes on as well and explore it more if they wish. Any other announcements? Sue?
I have 2 announcements. We learned last week that we were awarded 2 grants that the Planning Commission supported. The first is the Downtown Transportation Fund, where we will be making improvements to Bridge Street.
Great.
To kind of narrow it, put a second sidewalk in, redo the sidewalks. So that's good. There's some design work that needs to be done, so maybe it won't be constructed until next spring. And then the second is the municipal planning grant for capital budgeting. So the select board needs to accept both these grants. That'll happen in May, and then there'll probably be more to report on.
Well, fantastic. 2 for 2.
2 for 2. Yeah.
Any thoughts or things wanted to be said, commissioners, about those topics or of further announcements? Okay. Do we have anyone else on the Zoom roll that I can't see?
No, Sean is not here yet. I told him the first part could move early.
Okay, sure.
So.
All right, 6:15.
Yeah, we could jump around it.
Yeah, we could postpone it. Well, maybe I'll use a moment to ask a question. Have there been any responses to the letter, Lindsay's great idea of that letter sent to Putney Road property owners?
No, not that somebody has specifically,
Said
they
stated,
received something.
right?
Yeah.
Well, sometimes things have influence even if they're not, recognized by the people who,
Yeah.
even if people don't acknowledge that it was because of reading the letter, so.
Yeah.
Okay, well, so what if what if Sean shows up in like 10 minutes and we've started something else? What do you think we should do? So,
I would suggest that I think we should start, I don't think we should hold up waiting. But I think that we could just ask him to sit still here till we finish whatever.
right, yeah, the town plan, agenda items in 3 parts.
I mean, there's
so
3
we
parts, so I think.
Okay. Well, let's move on to that, the town plan 2026 topic. We have this general topic every meeting. This time we're going to be talking about the town plan survey, the community conversations, public outreach as well, and a potential community workshop. So 3 different types of public outreach that we're planning on doing, or the survey has already begun. We've gotten a lot of results for that. So it's my understanding you all talked about the town plan survey a bit, well, and the community conversations last meeting. So this will be continuing those and refining the topics a bit. Sue, I think you shared memos for both of those topics.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't I just pass it over to you and for the town plan survey.
Sure. And John, feel free to chime in if you want to. So what I gave you is a summary of the survey responses that we've gotten so far. So we've had 131. Actually, I think I saw 1 come in over the weekend. So this is not inclusive of that. We did do some outreach last week to try to get some more youth to take the survey, so maybe that is what we received, and so maybe it's trickling down to them, not really sure, but hopeful that we'll see some more of those. But what you see is, the age range of the respondents, highest was in the 40 to 49-year-old age group. In the 19 to 29-year-old, that only had 3 respondents, so that means that those who are over the age of 80 there's probably only 2. So, but there's kind of a general distribution that, I think, Steve, you said this is about 1% of our population.
Yeah.
Right, so.
He's above 80.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, no. I'm sorry, the general response rate,
Oh.
I should say, I kind of jumped
Okay.
ahead. Most of the respondents live in Brattleboro, or live and work in Brattleboro. Another 5% work in Brattleboro, and the rest do some shopping in Brattleboro, and also answered under other. So a lot of people that live here responded. These were open-ended questions, so we went through and kind of provided a summary of some of the themes that were highlighted in the responses. So the first one is the word cloud. We all saw a word cloud at the last meeting too. What makes Brattleboro special today that should be preserved? There were a lot of, strong sense of community in some of the events that are put on, Harris Hill, gallery walks, art and culture was discussed a lot, architecture, historic architecture, access to nature, vibrant downtown, natural beauty, and having small locally owned businesses and being able to walk and bike. Are there any questions on that? I can give you all the open-ended responses. I'm happy to do that, but I didn't want to bog down the packet with lots of pages.
Commissioners, any comments at this point?
The next questions are, what would you like to see change? There's another word cloud for you. So there, the cost of housing, some of the social concerns around crime and addiction, improving infrastructure, so roads, biking, walking, some discussion about cleanliness and enhancing public spaces, beautification, environmental sustainability, parking and traffic or traffic flow and road maintenance are concerns. And just like at the select board level or RTM level, there's there's kind of a split, but there's support for more social services for people that need it. But again, the comments were pretty similar if you followed along to representative town meeting and the discussions about human services, so it kind of fell on both sides of that.
I actually want to jump in with a question. Actually, just for going back to question one, I don't know where I came up with these specific words to look up, but I just wanted to test the, because you use some sort of program to do the word cloud, right? So I did, Control F in the document. Well, actually, maybe things have changed because I looked at last month's open-ended, where you had the memo with all the answers.
Yep.
And I searched for certain words through that, and now granted, I think maybe there was less answers then, and things have changed in you've had more answers in the last month or two. But in question one in that word cloud, community and downtown are the largest words. Businesses is pretty large too. I found business was mentioned 8 times, but outdoors was mentioned 9 times and nature 11 times. So then, but I don't see those words, except I see outdoors very small.
So the word cloud was from SurveyMonkey, itself, and I think it does give you a count of the number of words. So I'd be happy to pull that for the next time. I didn't test it.
And that was the only thing I tested, and I happened to find what I'm interpreting as kind of a discrepancy. So it makes me. And that's the only one of all the questions that I looked up, just, question one, and outdoors, nature, or I stopped before the E because to capture natural and nature. Yeah. So I don't know if SurveyMonkey has that sort of intelligence as well.
Yeah, it's not my favorite word cloud. I mean, I wonder if I can find a different word cloud program, because I can download the results and then, I can download them and then feed it through another word cloud maybe.
And then for each of these questions 1, 2, and 3, are the 1 through 10 in order of importance? But no. Okay, good, because I found what I thought was kind of a discrepancy if they were in order of importance.
No, they're not in order.
Okay.
It's just themes that came out of it.
Okay, great. The last question I have at this point is, should we stop this? Are you advising that we stop the survey now, or can we continue to try to capture the youth demographic that's pretty much missing here?
Yeah, so I think that we should leave it open maybe for a week or two. I don't know. I think there'll be other activities where we can more specifically go straight to the youth and try to get responses. I'm not sure this survey being open-ended in the way that it is necessarily, I don't know that we'd get a high response rate from the missing demographic piece of this, but I'll leave it up to,
Was it sent to any schools? Or the Boys and Girls Club?
It was sent to the Boys and Girls Club. It was sent to the Peace Jam group. And, I meant to send it and I didn't, but there's a library advisory board that I learned about. So I'll get it to them, but for them to kind of filter it out.
Have we sent things to the schools before for
not surveys? I've done work with the schools before.
Yeah.
Steve has done work with elementary schools, so yeah.
Okay. Okay, that's all I have right now.
Yeah, some hands up.
Oh, thank you.
Dan had his hand up. I don't know if he's still got a question, and then Bonnie.
Yeah.
No, Tom covered it about the ranking of the numerical order.
Okay, great. Glad I asked it. Bonnie, your turn.
Yeah, there's a very nice interfaith youth group that happens. They just did a presentation at my church on Sunday. they're a fairly large group, and they're very active young teenagers.
Do you have contact with them?
I could get it for you. Yeah. Do you know Priscilla Sveck? She's one of the group board. Okay, I'll get it for you.
Okay.
That'd be great. Thanks, Bonnie.
Yeah, so we can leave it open. I mean, I have to say I wasn't surprised with any of the responses because I feel like it's what I'm seeing
Right.
out there either on social media or at select board meeting comments or whatnot. So it's
Yeah.
so it doesn't, we're going to use it to inform the town plan, but it's not like we need to end it right now.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's the people who participate who get heard. More often than not, or always.
Yeah.
So.
And then the question 3 was about the vision for Brattleboro. So, there's wanting to support small businesses, artists, farmers, so that for economic development, affordable housing, need for a balanced housing stock that caters to different income levels, safety, again, cleanliness, cleaner, safer town, whatever that means. Improved infrastructure for transportation, that's traffic control, bike lanes, walkable spaces, public transport, a cultural hub, livable wages, attracting high-tech companies, wanting to keep Brattleboro a town that has a mix of income levels, where there's jobs and where people can stay after they graduate college or high school. Preservation, accessible waterfronts and green spaces, so environmental conservation. Improved health and social services, trauma-informed rehab centers, better care for people without homes and suffering from addiction, strong public schools. So those were kind of the visions. Dan's got a hand up.
Oh, yep, Dan.
And
Yeah, thanks, Sue. Thanks, Tom. Are any of those direct quotes, or I know there's you have a lot of text there. Okay, so how was that generated? Just
AI. I downloaded our and then I kind of looked it over.
okay, great. So it's coming from the questions.
Yeah, it's a summary of the responses.
Right.
Mhm.
Of the responses to the questions, yeah.
Yep.
So each number represents one respondent? That can't be, right?
No, it's just I asked for the top 10 kind of
Top
themes.
10, okay. Oh, top 10 themes, okay.
Yeah, but not ranked. Like what are, it's
Ranked,
not a
right.
ranking.
Right, okay. Yeah, it's written in a very objective way, which is good. But I am curious so we don't have any written sentences that humans wrote?
I have all that. I can share
Right.
that. It's just pages of,
I get that, yeah.
but yes, no, I do have that.
Quotes out, yeah, sure.
I
Okay.
can send it.
Wasn't that in the April meetings?
It was in the April.
Yeah,
Materials?
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
I don't need to see all of them. I just
Mhm.
would be good to distinguish what the how that text was generated. But yeah.
Sue, isn't it our intent to pull some of the quotes from the responses and use them in the town plan?
Yeah.
It'll add some color and
Yeah.
richness to the data in the town plan.
Okay.
I just want you to know Lindsay has her hand up.
Yep. Thank you. Okay, Lindsay?
Oops.
Hi, this is returning to the previous question. There was a mention in that one about parking, and I saw the headline in the Reformer or whatever about them thinking about that. And I was just wondering if there's a role for us to play as the Planning Commission. Because there are certainly, I feel like parking is an interestingly controversial subject in the planning community where best practices are hard to determine, but I wonder if we have a role in making some suggestions based on ideas from the planning community.
So, yes, but there's actually going to be a presentation on it before the select board tomorrow night.
Yeah.
So I don't know, that they're trying to kind of make some changes this summer to the parking districts. They've had some public meetings with merchants, or some meetings, I should say, with merchants. So I'm not sure. I can check into that.
Okay. I mean, I have my own personal suggestions, and they are somewhat based on, on best practices, but it just seems like it's controversial, so that maybe it might be helpful to have something come from like a planning body, from that perspective.
Yeah, I can pass that along.
Gary?
A thought that I have about that is a lot of it's already, done, right? They've already put the kiosks in, the grant money's been spent. It's just going to be some, unless there's some surprise tomorrow, right? It's just going to be some little, but maybe measurable improvements, but little improvements on the edges to make it more usable. But
I think it's fair to say they're not going to
rip them up and put something new in.
Put meters back or get rid of paid parking.
Yeah. Gary, your turn.
Well, I guess there was some talk about that in the paper about additional kiosks, I believe, but in light of with the budget and everything now. But I'm just trying to find out: are we going to incorporate this popcorning off of Lindsay with that? And that's something that, even if we make suggestions, will that be something that's going to be we can go forward with in light of the climate as we're going through right now with the finances?
I think you have to stay tuned for the select board meeting tomorrow night. It's been something that Public Works has been working on with parking management. So
yeah, because they were talking about I believe it was also with the EVs that were taken out as well, also in the parking garage. That was another.
Well, that's kind of a separate thing.
Okay.
It was the planning commission that signed off on this grant for this, for the changing the parking system, and then the select board signed off on it too on a subsequent or kind of parallel meeting. So, but maybe at that point we just had a very high level review of what it was, and so as with everything, it can be hard to actually know how it's going to be to experience it until it's actually built out. And I think for the reasons that were given, it is an improvement. It cleans up the sidewalk, etc. But then it's a change, and whether that's overall positive or negative subjectively for people is the issue, I guess. So it's different, that's for sure. Bonnie?
Yeah, I was at the DBA meeting last week where those parking guys were there talking about exactly this. And I guess the one big thing they said they were considering adding one more kiosk on kind of by where Key Bank is. That area, there's a big stretch there where people can't really see where the next kiosk is. So they're going to throw one in there. And then the other thing that was brought up was about Sunday parking, because not a lot of the merchants are happy with having to pay. And I kind of said the church people aren't real happy with it either, because it's hard enough to get people to go to church as it is. So that was the big discussion. They're really nice, and they're just moving forward with their plan already. They're not going to be stopped.
I think on that topic, Bonnie, I recall that they're also going to lump together some of the almost each parking lot with the adjacent street parking, like adjacent to it. So because I guess some people were getting confused about which zone they were in, if they were on the street right next to a parking lot. So presumably that will be an improvement. And then also, even though I've never used it once because I live downtown, don't need to park downtown, I noticed early on, I just tried with the text to pay, and if you put 1 for zone 1, it doesn't recognize it. If you put zone 1 without a space as it's written on the kiosk, it doesn't work. You have to write zone no space 1. So it's like, they're going to address that as well. I was glad to see.
Yeah, they said they were going to combine the the one on High Street there with the few spaces that are actually on High Street are going to have the same. Yeah, they're gonna have the same time restraints as the lot there, because the lot there you can get more time into the meter. So those few spaces like in front of the High Thai restaurant, those are gonna be the same as the lot spaces.
I've seen these kiosks in some other, I'll just say in cities. So, I don't know how common meters are in rural, this rural region we're in versus these kiosks, but at least it does seem to be the trend that the world is moving in, so.
Yeah.
At
I
least.
think Keene just went to the similar pay-by-plate, might be a different system, but I noticed they had a lot more signage than we have.
Yeah.
So.
There is a serious lack of signage. I mean, I assume that's why I'm seeing so many tickets downtown. I never saw tickets before the kiosks went in. I feel like it's almost
Hidden.
deliberate, the lack of signage. And it's probably not, but it would appear that way, I think, to a lot of people because it's so easy to miss, especially if you're not from here. Which doesn't make us seem very welcoming.
In downtown Keene, they have different parking. It's not parallel like we have on their main street, but they have, face in car, And I think they had a sign like every 3 parking spaces, even if there was like 15 parking spaces in a row.
If we did that, we'd be cluttering the sidewalks again.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little cluttery, but maybe for the transition.
Yeah, right. Gary?
Yeah, this again, popcorn over Lindsay. I've had the same incidents on the weekends directing people. So you get a paying job for that. But anyway, telling people where the kiosks are at and then answering questions of how long and what days. So I don't know if there's any signage that can be added to that to say, how long a person can park, where they can park, if they can park on Sunday. I mean, I think that's what people out of town coming here are the questions. So I was thinking maybe opening up that welcoming center up by the Commons. So when people come, maybe I can just, have a few pamphlets. Maybe we can get some pamphlets out for people. So when they come to town, they can grab that and know where they're at, like a little map and time and dates and what days and all that and how long and where they're located. Because that seems to be the issue. And that's usually standing there for hours on end trying to figure out what codes and keys to punch into these things, especially for seniors. So that comes to be a little cumbersome for some.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll pass all this along.
Sue, are you going to be part, as a planning director, are you going to be part of the presentation team to the select board? Or?
I'm not part of the team, but I'll be there.
Okay.
For other stuff.
Okay,
Yeah.
I think we're finishing up with question 3 there, the 1 through 10. I just have a quick question. The fact that it's in a different format than the question 1, question 2, like not having a little bold, subtitle for each number.
Yeah.
Do you think,
I took those out.
You took those out?
I took those out.
Okay.
On this one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You felt like they were just too simplifying?
Yeah.
Enough? Okay. Do you imagine that we'll use like this wording largely how it is in the town plan for, the 1 through 10 for Q1, Q2, Q3?
I don't know yet.
Okay.
It's summary language.
Yeah, right.
I didn't write it, so.
The thing is, it's like maybe this does better more objectively and thoroughly than like any human alive could.
It was gonna take a long time.
Maybe not.
To do it, I was like, ooh, let me try this, so.
Yeah, right, it seems better. That seems like I would have to spend a huge amount of time to come up with something like that, so organically, so I'm impressed.
Yeah. So question 4, just to finish it off, is, it was talking about a strong community. The top 4 responses were affordable, community, economic opportunity, and livable. So I could put those in a different way, in a, different format, but that's what we were hearing as kind of values or kind of strong community.
What does livable mean? Or how is livable a helpful word? Or informative, that's what I'll ask.
Yeah, well, I mean, these are the questions we
Yeah, right,
went
right,
with. I
right.
mean, I think some of the responses, the open-ended response are, do you want to tell us anything? I think a lot of people drew parallels between the words and was like, they were kind of like, well, livable is, being affordable is part of livability,
Right,
but
okay.
also, this and that. So, the question may be faulty.
So, so there was no AI summary for the
I didn't do
for the
one.
question 5.
I didn't.
Where they explain their chosen values.
I didn't do a summary of that one. I can do that for the next one.
I think it could be interesting.
I mean, that wasn't a required question, so.
Oh, a lot less
It's not.
results for that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Commissioners, any thoughts about this survey? Gonna be open for another week or two. We'll try to get it to a couple more youth groups. Okay.
I was going to ask one thing, Tom. Sue, did you mention the high school also?
There's a club that we sent it to at the high school.
Okay.
I didn't send it directly and ask them to put it out. That doesn't usually work all that well. It's kind of trying to find the in.
Oh, right. That's true. All right. I'll look further into that.
Yeah.
Yeah, on the question 4, I think, Sue, maybe there's some sort of cluster analysis that you can do that gives the overlap between if someone gave 4 answers and someone else gave 2, they're, you know what I mean, where they're overlapping. I'm not sure what that graph looks like, but there's a variety of sort of clustering techniques that might be informative, as you were saying about like people who answered livable and community or whatever, might be interesting.
Okay. If you know how to do it, I can send you the data.
I can figure it out if you want. I bet you could probably figure it out faster, but I'd be happy to. Yeah, it's
Okay.
interesting for
You
sure.
could use AI. AI is
No, right?
Ask AI how to do it, yeah, and then do it.
Yeah.
If we were to get 10 or 15 or 20 more results in the next 2 weeks, is all this going to be redone? Or what are you thinking, Sue?
I don't know.
Won't change much.
No.
Yeah.
Something
to consider.
I could do it. I don't know that we need to discuss it again.
Right.
But I could do it just for background. I mean, I think it does make sense in the end to have kind of a final survey report
Mm-hmm. Okay.
that we put up online.
Yeah.
So the people that took it can see it, and then we have it as background
Mhm.
as public outreach.
Yeah. Well, I think this is a whole lot more effective than, say, like just having all the answers to commissioners and then like sitting here in this meeting on Zoom and in person and asking us to interpret it and see what we think the conclusions are and the major themes. So I think this is pretty objective and thorough and it seems like some really good community input.
Yeah.
For 1% of the population, but so be it. Okay, moving on to the community conversations.
Oh, Dan wanted to say something.
I actually think that's a great sample size, by the way. I mean, you could add more to it for sure, but that I would say it's a good sample size.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dan. I thought it was pretty good when Steve framed it as it's 1% of the population. I was like, oh, okay. For the type of survey that it is.
Right. Yeah, good point.
You know.
I mean, when they do political polling, they just do like 1,000 or 2,000 people, right? And that's out of 170 million voters or 200 million voters. So, yeah, I think we have a good pulse on the community, at least as far as those questions that we asked go. Okay, moving on to community conversations.
So based on our meeting the last time and then the draft, I finalized the community conversation kit with the questions that we had discussed. And so there's 2 things things we want to do tonight. Well, the one thing we want to do is kind of brainstorm the demographics that we might want to get out of this and potential groups that we can be talking to. And then wanted to go over some of our desired outputs and outcomes for this. So I guess, you know, I can start with the outputs and the outcomes. So, you know, kind of the immediate outputs for this activity would be, we'd be asking commissioners or whoever is conducting these discussions to record any interesting quotes. As John mentioned earlier, you know, we can use them in the town plan to kind of provide some color. We want you to document any ideas that are generated in the conversations. And then kind of document any themes that you observe over the course of the conversation. So if all your questions seem to be leading in one direction, let us know that. And then record some basic demographic information about the group that you're speaking to. The outcomes are kind of the longer term, how we're going to use it, or you know what we hope to get out of it, which is increased participation and engagement from people who are not usually responding to surveys or attending public meetings, giving some qualitative feedback from the community that will help us frame goals, policies, and actions in the town plan. We want you to be able to, maybe this is more of an output, I sometimes get a little confused, but be able to probe a little on the questions. So in the survey that we just had, we didn't really have an opportunity to like really dig in to find what they meant. So this activity lets us probe further. So when if you're conducting one, feel free to ask questions so that we can dive deeper. And then ideally, you know, by talking with lots of people, we're going to have more support for the town plan through its adoption process, but also eventual implementation of it. So those are the outcomes of this activity.
Yeah, I think it'd be valuable for commissioners and anyone else who's leading the community conversations to, of course, bring those I don't know, 8 or so pages of the kit that you have made, Sue, but as well as that memo right there, that 1-page memo that has those 4 outputs and 4 outcomes to help. I think some of those, you know, to a little degree are addressed in the kit below, but to be reminded of that as we're going through it, I think would be valuable. Good reminder.
John, you're unmuted. I don't know.
Yeah, I was just going to say, just to make sure, to repeat some of the important points that Sue mentioned, get the number of people you talk to, and we're going to try and target some specific demographic representations. People in low incomes, you know, homeless, even if we can reach out to those folks. Just make sure when you record a summary of a conversation that if it's a specific demographic, you record that. I don't need names or anything that would infringe on anybody's privacy. Just we want to be credible in the sense that we're representing as many different groups of Brattleboro as we can.
Gary?
That is great, because I was just wondering what type of open dialogue for each demographic, be it seniors, teenagers, whoever, how would you open up the conversation to each individual versus you're opening up a conversation with some of these questions that may or may not be applicable to homeless people, you know, that they probably won't give you the answers on most of these things because of their position, along with, you know, high schoolers or whatever, college people, you'd be more of your seniors or people, homeowners or people living here or working, but how do you approach those individuals with these questions, the same questions that we're asking? Or do we just narrow it down to certain questions that are applicable to that particular group?
John, Sue?
It's a good question, Gary. And I've not necessarily been successful doing outreach with certain demographics in the community because certain people have, you know, needs that are more pressing and, you know, maybe don't spend the time thinking about this all day. So I don't actually have a good answer for that, but I think if we're trying to reach a certain demographic and if we're working with a certain organization, maybe we can get some guidance from staff there. So you know, say you set something up with, you know, maybe Lindsay, you're helping me out here, or do you have a separate question?
Yeah,
You
I
can
was going to
jump in.
offer a suggestion that, there's quite a few questions on the list and the conversation is only so long. So one method might be to ask the people in your group what questions on here most interest you.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's good. That's
and
good.
let them help narrow it down that
Mhm.
way.
Right. And that'll narrow that time limit because I know there's a certain time limit that you have
Yeah.
on and
Yeah.
I don't know if you want people to be creative with other questions that might be applicable to the questionnaire as well, also that they might want to add to that could add that time in with the conversation.
Yeah, I like your suggestion, Lindsay, and I think, if it's a, say we're meeting with a bunch of people who are new to this community, who don't spend time thinking about how town government works because they're trying to secure housing or jobs or just get around the community. It could be something broad of like, it doesn't even have to be any of these questions. It can be, what are your thoughts about Brattleboro? What can be, it could be the basics. What do you really like about what needs to be improved? What would help you be, stay in Brattleboro?
Yep, Dan?
Yeah, thanks. I don't think we addressed this last time when we looked at the questions, but are we open to the possibility of doing a virtual meeting with this as well? Okay, so would we in those if we have more than one of those in those cases, would we be able to record them?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, and then the in-person ones, are we planning to record those?
If you want to record one, I do have a handheld. I see John's hands up. I think you'd want permission from them, but you could borrow a handheld little recorder.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's my point. We'd have to, if we're going to do that. I think if we're going to do it on the Zoom calls, we should do it in person as well, if we can, if everyone agrees. But just
Yeah.
to be comparing apples and apples,
And if you do it on a Zoom, that's something I could set up and start it, give it the link. But there'd have to be communication with me so that I can, unless you use your personal Zoom. But if you wanted to use ours, you do that.
Well, you could use BCTVs as well. I'm assuming also they'll loan out their camcorders for this type of event. I spoke
That
to
I don't know.
Helene.
I think you have to be trained on it.
Well, if you remember, and if you've gone to a couple of the, I could probably borrow it myself. But yeah, they're more than willing to. It's a quick training. Doesn't take long to. I don't know if anybody's ever worked a camcorder before or a camera, but it's very academic.
I just have a little tape recorder that
Yeah.
before COVID, that was the way we'd record our meetings. 'Cause, now they're done this way. But anyway,
And you don't need consent forms, do you? Just to because some issues. I mean, some people say, yeah, but I didn't.
Well, I
it's
think
a
you want to
gray area.
ask people. I can come up with a consent form, but I don't think we have to overcomplicate it either.
Yeah,
Just
because I don't.
ask, are you okay if I tape?
I want to go back to the demographics, some key groups that we want to try to fill in. If we have want to brainstorm about that.
Well, my first thought, I think the two demographic data that we collected was age and gender/sex. And so certainly trying to get youth groups, up to 29 years old. For me, that's one to focus on. And then for the gender, I think there was twice as many results for the survey from women, from females, than from male men. So I guess we could, go somewhere where men are more frequent and receptive to having a conversation about this, wherever that may be. I haven't given it much thought.
Do you mention also like BIPOC, LGBTQ, any of the other communities as well, Tom?
I didn't mention it, but because we didn't capture that data or try to capture it in the survey, so we don't know what sort of ethnicities we collected from. But yes, certainly that'd be important to make sure we capture for the community conversations, I think. I mean, let's just say each commissioner, and there's 6 of us, did 2 community conversations. I mean, that's 12. And if one of those wasn't a BIPOC group, I think maybe we wouldn't be doing a good job. At least one, let's say.
Sean had his hand up.
Oh, okay.
His real hand up.
This
Okay,
is
yeah,
my
I can't
opinion.
see in the list there. Did you mean Sean or you said John?
John.
Oh, okay.
Sean hasn't come on.
Interesting.
So,
This is my opinion, but I think it's going to be, from a practical standpoint, I don't think you're going to be asking a group of 10 people, okay, everybody who's a female, please raise their hand. Everybody who's a female but identifies as a male, raise your hand.
Right.
All that kind of stuff. I think what's going to happen is you go out and you find a group of people in the same tribe, for want of a better word. I don't know what it's called these days. And then you just record the fact, okay, I talked to the blah, blah, blahs, who is a group of BIPOC, or is a group of, women's organization, or is a senior center person or
Mhm.
something like that. And that's probably good enough for recording the data. I don't know if you need to collect the age from all the people and
Right.
all that other kind of stuff. Again, correct me if I'm wrong, Sue, but
I agree.
yeah, I did
It's a
put
general.
an age question, but
That's more of not asking them outright. Like, it's just kind of like, where do you think? So, for example, one of the groups I thought of, because they were really willing to engage with us on our Canal Street study, is Red Clover Commons. It's a senior affordable housing. When I'm talking with that group, maybe it doesn't matter. I just write down Red Clover Commons, and we all know it's senior and affordable housing. Or I'd probably put they're all over 60, something like that. So it doesn't have to be hard and fast, but I thought, well, arranging a conversation with them, we might get a handful. They enjoyed coming down to their community meeting room and doing that, and had lots to say to us. So
just one more thing quickly. The outcomes of the conversations, in my opinion at least, aren't going to result in graphs or bar charts. It's simply going to demonstrate that we have reached out to the many different sides of the community for their input on what the town plan should look like. And that's my opinion, at least.
I wonder
Just
though.
to ask the community, basically, the community itself, what their thoughts and feelings are, and it could be in any demographic.
well, I mean, I think yes, it can be, but we also want to make sure that we hit on a diversity of.
Right. Being we're in a mixed community already, so that's the case. I don't want to single out particular groups or organizations, you know what I mean? Just asking people in general what their feedback, what their thoughts are. And that way we get that proper feedback from the whole demographics, I think.
You don't always, Gary, and sometimes you have to kind of target specific groups. I don't know, talk over Lindsay. So.
Yeah. I think if we, I don't know if it's the goal of this at this meeting right now to try to come up with all the organizations or groups of people. We just lost the Zoom video. Are you still connected on your laptop, Sue?
Yep. Is it back?
Yes.
Oh, and people can still hear me.
I think it turned off the monitor.
Oh, did it unplug?
I can hear you.
Keep talking. I'll try
Okay.
to troubleshoot this.
I mean, if we were able to all just brainstorm or outside the meeting or something, come up with a list of all the groups and organizations or whatnot that we'll have these conversations with, then I think then we can, even before doing it, know that we'll have, whether or not we'll have a decent diversity, and if we need to think harder to come up with some groups that are missing from our first list. A couple of thoughts that I thought, I mean, I have a couple of friends who are in the Rotary group, and they're very receptive to that because they have weekly meetings, I think, and there's always a presenter and on any of various topics, and they're all about community outreach. So Rotary is one that there's 2 Rotary groups in town, I'll say, and a couple of friends I have are in the Sunrise Rotary group, meaning they meet early in the day. The other one's at lunchtime. So that's one I could potentially do, and whatever the demographics of that are, I don't know, typically middle-aged people, I guess.
Do we have to let individuals know who we targeted so that we're not double dipping, if you know what I mean, going to that same organization?
Oh yeah, I think we should. I think we should. I don't know Sue, if you have a different plan, or John, but I mean, if we came up with a list.
Yep, I mean, the idea was to come up with a list.
Yeah. And then I thought that I'd like to do something with my neighborhood. I guess I don't know, invite people into my living room. I don't know, maybe I'd go around with like little postcards or something and put them on all the mailboxes in my neighborhood and say, hey, come to my living room on this date. And then hopefully it wouldn't be too overwhelming, and then I would do it. And then I thought, certainly like I mentioned earlier, some sort of youth group or school. Certainly probably would be unwieldy to like be at the high school in front of everyone, and probably maybe the high school wouldn't view this as important enough. Maybe they would, to convene everyone, but that would be.
When we did the last town plan,
Yeah.
we worked with a social studies teacher. It was towards the end of the year in June, and we went in and did a couple sessions with
Two different classes.
classrooms. Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Yeah, that could be neat.
Yeah, so I can see if we can arrange something like that.
Yeah. So those are three thoughts I have. So we could, whether it's a class or one of those youth groups that Sue and others mentioned earlier, Rotary and my neighborhood. So
With postcards, we can help you out.
Okay, so I would do two of those. I'm not sure which ones, except obviously my neighborhood. Bonnie, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I like the neighborhood idea. I would like to do that because I have lots of neighbors. And also, I'm on the board of Loaves and Fishes. Do you think that would be a valuable group to talk to? It's made up of people from Center Church and St. Michael's Episcopal, and there's like 10 of us. So, but
I think so.
But Sue, could I get like a printed material from you? Because
Absolutely.
I don't have a printer. Okay,
Yep.
great. Thank you.
And I'll hit the senior center.
Dan has his hand up.
Yeah, Dan, go ahead.
If we have ideas, can we email the group as well about this, or do we have to, do we want to flesh them out today?
We can't have a conversation, so better to email me and I can send it out.
That works.
There's a Stitch group that meets at the library every Saturday that I often go to. And there's some age diversity. It did not surprise me that you didn't get very many responses from 20 to 29-year-olds because I don't think I've met any since I lived here in Brattleboro. I don't know where they are. If they exist, I haven't met them. Well, I guess maybe some of the cashiers at the co-op, which was another possibility. Maybe the co-op would host.
Mm-hmm.
Well, skateboard park, Lindsay, might be a good spot. A lot of them hang out up there. So just
okay. So the Stitch group, but I don't know if I'll be able to go this Saturday because we have COVID in our house, so I might not be able to do that. But I was also going to suggest, sort of in line with the senior center, that the Meals on Wheels program does do some in-person meals at their location, and so you might reach out to Cynthia Fisher, who runs that, to see if maybe someone could come and do a lunchtime conversation with folks.
Yeah, and Catherine Turnus too. She heads up that program. That's definitely that's a good idea, Lindsay, because those two handle the a lot of the programs that are happening down there too, and they're crocheting, which I do.
So a couple of ideas that I had was, again, the Red Clover Commons seniors, the Families First. They're out on Old Guilford Road, and I did some engagement with them. They have self-advocates. These are people living with disabilities. So they have self-advocates that could engage in conversations. There's also the Vermont Association for Blind and Vision Impaired. I don't know if they'd be interested in something like this, but I've done walking tours with them to understand what their needs are. And I think they're groups that, are not maybe typically represented and bring their own lens to some of the needs, their needs, so.
And I can get some of I go to a lot of the veterans lodges, and I can also get you the contact information too for the vets. That's another important community people that would love to be a part of that as well also.
As far as people under 30, I think I was 1/3 of the 20-something response rate for this, so I imagine I could get a group of maybe about 10, 20 to 39-year-olds around to do one of these.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin.
Yeah, that was thinking,
Yeah, it sounds good.
I think it would be good if we try to do these over the next 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
So, those of you that have put groups out, if you need support from the department, please let us know. We can, definitely copies of the kit. If you want to borrow the recorder, if you need a Zoom meeting, if you need a flyer to staff, we can help with that. And then maybe we can check in June to see if anything's been able to be accomplished.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder also, like, I'm thinking in particular of like the Stitch group, like I'm happy to like talk with people, but is it also useful if I'm not able to do that, to bring the computer just to get more people to take the town survey? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah,
If
and if
you
you think
supply a
that's a
laptop,
good,
Sue?
can I supply a laptop? I
Oh,
don't
I
have an
was
extra.
talking about bringing my laptop.
Yeah.
Oh,
I don't have an extra, but the
okay.
library probably does.
Oh, there we
Um,
go. Okay.
Yeah, I don't have one that I could loan out to people for their groups, but yeah, I mean, if you also think it's a good group to talk to, Lindsay, I mean, I would imagine you would sit around and stitch and talk. So I was gonna say I could go, but I don't stitch. So.
That's okay. A lot of the people who come, they do stitch, but they spend a lot of the meeting looking at cookbooks. So
I would do that.
yeah, you don't have to actually be involved in moving anything with a needle while you're there.
You could hold the yarn.
I guess I'll open space up for if there's any commissioners who feel like I don't know, uncomfortable, or there may be a barrier in their own lives or whatever to conducting one or two of these in the next couple of months themselves, is, speak now or by email or later to Sue or I, or does anything need to change, or is you're uncomfortable with something, or is there some barrier that could be addressed if you feel like vocalizing it now? Because I mean, it would be the more of us that do it, the more results we'll get, and the more varied places we will go by the more varied people on the commission who actually go and conduct them. So,
And
it'd be great if all of us do this. Is my personal opinion.
On that note, could I just suggest we talk a little bit about scheduling and how that, just generally, like, do we want some on weekends, some in evenings, some in daytime? We want to kind of, and then some of us are going to be more or less available those different times.
So my thought was that you would each schedule your own, and so therefore you would do it when it was convenient for you. So if you're hosting your neighbors, you could do that evening, weekend, whatever works. I know that many of you work, and so doing something during your work hours is could be difficult, and therefore if there's a group you really want to talk to but you're not going to be able to make it happen, let us know and maybe we can do it. But I don't think the time and day really matters. It's more the number and being able to talk to people.
So whatever fits in our busy schedule, basically, we can fit in there. We can maneuver that. But as far as we were saying barriers, Tom, I don't know how you want to clarify barrier, meaning like any places that we don't feel comfortable, I guess you're saying, or?
Well, I mean, it's just a few of us, 4 of us maybe, seems to volunteer and say that, yeah, we will do this, but then two or three of us haven't said that. So just, just like, I think just be ideal for all of us to participate and conduct, one or two or three of these. So just, maybe someone feels like they would prefer to do this as a team with another commissioner instead of solo.
Oh,
Or maybe they want a staff member to be with them because maybe they don't feel so outgoing and they get nervous. I don't know. I mean, I'll probably get nervous doing it, but
you needed a team player. I'm with you, Tom.
Yeah.
I think we should try to do it with at least two people, really. But I mean, it's certainly doable if you have a small enough group, if you have one person. But for all kinds of reasons, including safety, it's probably a good idea for us to do it in pairs. But
yeah, I imagine like Rotary is a pretty large group of people, isn't it? It's like 50 people. So, it seems, without thinking about it too much, that two commissioners would be appropriate to, would be the best way to handle that.
I think what I would ask, just to keep this conversation moving,
Right.
Is, if you're gonna be conducting one, let me know. Let me know what you need. And if you're planning one of the larger groups or something and you want assistance from somebody, or it's a group you don't know and so you want it for safety purposes or whatever, just bring it through me and I'll either find you somebody or staff will go with you.
And how long should the conversation be? You said how many hour? 45 minutes?
Yeah, I mean, it could be, 15 minutes, it could be an hour. It's gonna depend on, what people are saying and yeah, I mean, no more than an hour is the intent.
Dan?
and if you're intending to perform one with an existing group, would it be okay to send them the questions ahead of time and sort of prep them?
That's a good
That's
idea.
fine.
To get their buy-in to. Okay, sounds good.
Okay, commissioners, do we feel good about trying to, conduct at least one of these each maybe before the next meeting and, reaching out to Sue, staff, maybe, other commissioners individually, so you don't break open meeting law, about any support or, and to notify Sue of your plans? Do we feel good about that, or any final reservations or adjustments needed?
I feel comfortable, but just in case, you don't get the script right, if they say, and that way you can just correct that. And I think like what Dan said, 2 by 2. So people who really know the script, so you're not nervous when you get out, because there are, you might get sometimes slip up or get creative and ad lib, and it's not directly from.
I think that's okay, Gary. I think, that's just more if you're not comfortable doing it and you need to read from something. You can ad lib, that's okay.
Okay, because when I get to conversation, sometimes there might be 2 or 3 hours with me.
Yeah.
I don't believe it.
So if we let Sue know in advance what our plans are, then she'll be able to say, if we do it enough in advance, like, oh wait, one of the other commissioners already did this group, or not. So, and then hopefully next month, we'll be able to convene and say how it went for all of us, and then potentially do more in the month afterwards. Does that sound good, Sue? Is that in alignment with? Okay.
Yeah, one more suggestion to use an example. So if we have a large apartment building, we may want to do 2 of them within the next couple of months if we can possibly. Does that sound? It could be the same people returning or different people, different commissioners returning. But I think having one to sort of get the word out. In fact, you're going to be getting the word out and then come back again might be effective as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same questions, although conversation might go in a different way, so there might be different probing conversations, but yeah, if it's a big, that'd be fun.
Okay.
Yeah, I would agree, because some people, like, I wouldn't do it around Memorial Day, like the holidays or things like that. People do tend, I don't know how we're going to be doing much traveling this summer, but, that's the thing, trying to get that whole group, and you may have to do 2 because of the fact some people, they would like their friends to be a part of that. So I would organize to say, when's a good time, to, have that conversation with the people, and you could probably plan it ahead, like you're going to have this coming up. And that way people will be aware of that. If you could put it like on an agenda, like say, for instance, if you go to Tri Park, or if you go to, like Sue saying, to, one of these apartment buildings up here, like, and you want to set it up in their community room, that's something that can be, because I was wondering too, if something like that, if with BHP that I'm on there also, if I could send that out and they can send it to the SASH program.
Yeah, they're Christine and other SASH staff have been really helpful, so they would do that.
Yeah, so that might be helpful.
All right, so let's plan to discuss at the June meeting our how it went for each of us, or and then we can compare notes and then go out again and do more. Let's chat about a third way of doing community outreach, doing a workshop. Yeah, Sue.
So by we, I mean myself and Steve and John have been talking about, hosting a public workshop where we invite people to come and, give, have an activity to get input. We were specifically thinking around land use, but there's some other, topics, maybe it's 2 workshops or whatever. We want to begin planning, I mentioned on there picking a date. I mean, we want to do this right and have all the materials, and so I tend to avoid meetings over the summer.
Which makes June really, really close if we were trying to do something. But maybe end of August or September is more likely. So wanted to get your
thoughts on, any ideas that you might have for outreach that you want to see. We've talked about, when we met last Friday, we were talking about going back to the kind of idea of you have a certain amount of money and, really sort of, really trying to prioritize kind of where the town should be, spending their, go ahead, John.
I was just going to actually follow on with what you're saying. In the outreach we've done so far, I think from the answers, the way I interpret it is a lot of people have said, well, yes, I want A and B and C and D and E and F and G and H in a sort of unconstrained, unbounded environment. The difference in goals with what Sue is proposing would be that we would do a deep dive, land use, for example, but we would try to present some sort of zero-sum discussion where we would ask people to make a decision choosing between this or that. The way I think of it is similar to what we did on the Putney Road discussion in the Planning Commission. Is that a fair metaphor, Sue? Something similar to that. And then also, as Sue said, putting it in front of in some way, putting it in front of people. So we say, hey, you only have so many resources. How would you prioritize them in the context of whatever discussion we're having, land use? And that to me is the key difference in differentiation with the other data we've collected from the community.
I like the sound of that. That seems valuable.
I thought the Putney discussion was very interesting, both from what I learned and then also from what it brought out in the planning commission in terms of the discussion. So I think done properly, we could do a similar sort of thing with the community, making sure that, we don't make it too technological or, too much jargon, that kind of stuff.
One of the other things, particularly as we think about capital programming, we have lots of plans, the map, the downtown plan, the housing plan, the bike walk, with some really great projects in it. So this, if one meeting's really solely focused on land use, I think beginning to prioritize some of those projects in there, because I think we're all aware of the funding constraints that the town has, that we're seeing at a federal and a state level as well. And so really trying to be maybe a little less visionary about all the great things that we wanna do and more practical, with the budget. And so that's a little bit different than kind of the Putney Road thing that we were talking about, but maybe that's something separate, or maybe it's something we do here at the planning commission level. Just to sort through those.
No, I think your description's good. I'm more than willing to give up on the Putney Road metaphor. It's mostly about having people actually think about the trade-offs.
Lindsay?
I'd be very glad to help if we did a public workshop.
Oh, great.
If we end up needing people for that, be an opportunity to use that charrette planning type experience I got in planning school.
Thanks.
The other thing I was going to mention is that playing off of what you just said, Sue, I think it would also be really interesting as we face these constraints to look at what lies behind what people are most interested in and how those things might be achieved in different ways that maybe don't cost the same amount of money. Like if what's really behind what people want is beautification, like how does that happen at a community level where we don't rely as much maybe on staff or money to get things done? What are the alternative? Because sometimes I think that's where people go is sort of like the outsourcing mindset, but there's a lot, that can be done by individuals.
That's true.
That's a good point.
Yeah, you got my gears and my brain thinking a little bit. Yeah, I don't know. Workshop could be like, what are the barriers, or what permission do you need permission to go off and make some improvement to Brattleboro yourself? Are you?
That's the exact question. I feel
Right.
like a lot of people feel like they need permission to do things, and there are lots of things that we can do either without permission or that permission is, quickly forthcoming. An example would be that like I know people who like to clean up trash. You don't need any permission to go around and pick up garbage off of the street. You are perfectly welcome. Green Up Day is every day,
Yeah.
And that's just one example.
Yeah, this whole question could be, what would you or your associates like to do to improve the town that you're not sure, or that you need just a little bit of help for, or permission, or you're not sure if you can, and then we could answer it for them. I don't know how that factors into a town plan exactly, but it could help. It could help with the implementation of some of the goals.
Well, a lot of things are volunteer. People just get creative if they want to beautify gardening or whatever, or like Lindsay said, picking up. People just kind of just do it without waiting for, a rubber stamp or whatever have you, or permission, or to be blessed by the Pope or whatever. Just do it. And I mentioned that with several meetings. You don't have to wait for approval for people to do things that are right and that's great for your town to make some impact.
Bonnie's got her hand up.
Oh, Bonnie?
Yeah, so I just asked permission from Parks and Recs because I live right next to the cemetery and I'm a gardener. So I asked Carol, is it Carol? And I said I wanted to do this little garden in the cemetery, and she was like, "Yeah, oh great." And so I am also a member of the Brattleboro Floral Arts and Garden Club. And so I just put word out that I would like donations of a certain kind of plant, because what I'm doing here is a dragonfly garden because it's right next to a big fountain. So it's going to be very balanced with what already exists here. And I'm not asking for any money at all from, the town, because I don't need to. And so some things I felt like I needed to ask permission just because it was a cemetery. It wasn't my yard. But Carol was so quick to just say yes. So it feels good to have that kind of response from a community leader.
Yeah, where they're accessible and
Yeah.
approachable.
Well, doing things like Dick DeGray was doing with the flower planting, and there's a gentleman that down at the co-op on Sundays makes dinners or lunches for people. I mean, yeah, there's certain places that you
I
may
just,
need
as a board
permission.
member of DBA, I do just want to say that the flower program was funded by DBA.
Oh, okay. 'Cause I knew some of the things he pretty much did on his own, he said.
Oh, he
So
did a lot. He did a lot of,
out of pocket.
he did
Yeah.
do a lot.
But that's the thing in general. He volunteered his services, his servitude, should I
Yes.
say, not services,
Mhm.
which a lot of people, we are a part of a community. And if we can serve the community to our fullest capacity, whatever gifts or talents we have, just do it.
Yeah,
So
it'd be great to find some way. I don't know if it'd be
I can
its
see
own
it.
separate workshop, but some way to help people feel empowered, but not step out and and be doing and be
One of the
defacing
things,
town
in
property
our
or something.
survey, actually, one of the things was that people, we're looking for alternative ways to get things done.
Right.
So I could see it like in a workshop, if there were stations, there could be a station that kind of gets at that.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Kind of
Do you-
question.
Do you recall, Sue, from the previous town plan, what the workshop or workshops were about or how they were themed?
So we had two. One was focused entirely on, we invited all the town boards and committee members to come to a meeting to kind of strategize around sustainability and what it meant for them and their particular area. That their board or committee worked on. So that was, I kind of vaguely remember that. It took place at the Marlboro Graduate Center. The other one we had was more of a community meeting that focused on 5 topics. Transportation, the natural environment, and that was more of kind of like a SWOT analysis kind of. Actually, the other one may have been a SWOT analysis too, now that I think about it, but within certain domains of sustainability. So the boarding committee one was, they were both okay the boarding committee had better attendance, but that, was volunteers already for the town. The other one was okay attendance, kind of the typical, the usual. I also think a lot about the, this kind of gets to what we were first talking about, what John mentioned, kind of the zero-sum game. So there's kind of like the wicked problems of like, do you want land conservation or do you want housing? And, kind of going through an exercise at a station that talks about the positives and the negatives of both, and then trying to come to some sort of balance of it. So if we could think about what those tensions are, if we had a couple of different tensions, then people could separate them out, themselves out into areas that they're interested in.
Yeah, I like that because, like John was saying earlier, it's not just like, hey, list. You just have an open text, to just say everything that you wish and hope for, but actually, it makes it more realistic because there are not unlimited resources or unlimited time to do things. So I like that. I like that take on it or that approach.
Yeah, and I was trying to think of a couple of different of them, and I know one that we've talked about here is historic preservation. So it can be historic preservation versus development, because if you're too restrictive on historic preservation, then you're maybe not going to get development that we need or we want, and so kind of grappling with that and coming to some sort of consensus in the end about the right way to approach it. Just trying to think through all the.
Yeah. And are those land use questions?
I mean, I think they are.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
That's kind of where I was thinking for the land use
Exactly.
meeting.
Yeah, I think we could come up with a lot of those under the land use theme. I mean, one is like, do we want to preserve, big industrial and commercial areas for potential job opportunities, or should we?
Jobs versus housing, or.
Yeah, jobs versus housing, basically said. Or potential jobs, because maybe jobs have all gone remote into the service, and those big manufacturing don't really exist anymore.
We're gonna talk about that next.
Right. Okay, discuss community land use workshop, other workshop ideas, agree on a potential date, discuss the need for any additional workshops. So from your experience, Sue, you said this a little bit, you think June is too soon,
I don't think I can
and the
be
summer
ready
is a
for
bad
June.
idea. So
Well,
September?
no, midsummer is not a great idea.
Midsummer,
I mean, we
oh.
could try something, but, yeah, we can try.
Well, I mean, you
It's not a
have,
very busy time for meetings, so that's the positive,
Right.
but, it's also people.
yeah, well, it sounds like we shouldn't do midsummer based off your experience. And June's too soon, so then what does that mean? Late August is what you think is the soonest?
I'm thinking, yeah, late August,
Uh-huh.
mid to late August, I think would be
Okay.
okay.
That's about the time everybody comes back and starts preparing for school. By the end, so it would be great. But I was wondering too, Sue and Tom, about the arts and humanities.
Say that
As
again?
well too, arts and humanity arts that they have in the town, that there might be something that can be a part of a workshop, because they're doing a lot of murals and things like that, preserving the cultural aspects of Brattleboro and the arts and historical.
I have to think about what to do with that.
Is there a committee that was that's working on the arts and culture chapter?
We have the municipal planning grant right now that's
Oh, that's
finishing
right.
up
That's
that
gonna
we've been
inform
doing
that.
work on, so staff was gonna work on that one.
Okay.
And then probably work on it with the town arts committee.
Right.
But yeah,
Was there another chapter that I forget? I'd have to go back, but that some of the chapters we felt like we have recent plans to inform. Some of the chapters have very knowledgeable and capable people to help work on those chapters and committees. There was like 2 or 3 chapters at least some months ago that we were like, oh, should we hire a consultant for that? Could
So
that
the
potentially
one-
inform?
so that was
workshop?
economic development.
Yeah.
There is actually a presentation tomorrow night from the person that's been working on Brattleboro Thrives with the Chamber and DBA. So I was planning on picking his brain. In the end, I think we thought we could handle it with Neil's
Right,
guidance, speaking with BDCC
Yeah.
and that, so. Yeah.
So maybe we're okay with just one workshop about, land use and these dichotomous tensions and things. But we'll have
Yeah.
time to think more about it
Yeah,
by late August.
but I feel like, I've got some sort of direction to move in, and Lindsay, I'll definitely reach out.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay.
And just with that, you were asking about chapters,
All
so
right.
we're expecting to have housing and transportation and probably agriculture drafts almost done. They're almost done. We
Wow.
hope to have one of them in kind of the format that we hope to use moving forward for the June meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And those are all 3 chapters that are relying heavily on existing plans and outreach that was done,
Mhm.
so.
Great. You
So-
said, you think they'll be ready for the June meeting for our review?
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
one in the actual format, the other 2 will be, we're not gonna put them all in the format for the plan, but I want you to see what it will look like so that we can all get behind it.
Oh, great. Okay, moving on, yeah, certainly it looks like the lead in housing
Yeah, I
topic
checked
won't
my
be here,
emails and-
but, so maybe we'll put that on for next meeting if it seems like the presenter will be able to attend. But moving on to the industrial zoning district boundaries, if y'all will recall, I think back in December and maybe November, we had a meeting or two, using the forum about ideas that the public has, the forum on our website. The Cotton Mill Hill BDCC representative came with ideas for housing, and then the staff's recommendations and our conversation, we felt like, well, let's zoom out and just consider the whole industrial areas as a whole and where their boundaries are and what's permissive within that district. And I think we just left it in December as like, we trust staff to, come back to us with a less open-ended, just like discussion, but some recommendations. But then it seems like actually I think staff wants to just actually kind of roll this into the town plan project, and
Yeah,
but I'll let you speak for yourself. That's my intro.
Yeah. I think, yeah, we've been pretty swamped, and
Yeah.
when you threw it back on Mike, it's like, hey, it was like, yeah, we need to get moving on this, so, I may have been a little premature this morning, but, we do have a little slideshow to bring this back up. We have a recommendation for one area and some thoughts to kind of bounce off of you for
Okay.
2 of the other areas. And then we'll, keep moving it forward. We won't, if we get some direction, then, we'll get to work on it. We won't keep bringing it back, but
Okay.
anyway. I am gonna share my screen.
Do all commissioners recall that back from December and November? If you don't, you need any clarifying question or anything, just yell before Sue goes into it.
If you want to do a quick synopsis, that would be great.
Oh, I think I just tried to do that.
So in December, BDCC came and they were interested in doing housing in the Cotton Mill Hill, which is not allowed under our current zoning. They are zoned industrial. So that got us thinking about a couple of different ways that we could look at this. And staff had expressed some concern with our industrial zoning in general. So this is a little kind of overview of our zoning, how it came to be, a little bit of discussion of kind of what the industrial trends are for Northern New England right now. And then, just looking at the 3 different areas with, 1, we have a pretty solid recommendation for. 2, we've got some questions and just wanted to share some information with you on. So, whether or not we try to advance something before we finish the town plan, I'm a little unsure of. But what I would say, this conversation that we'll have right now will inform the town plan regardless of what we do zoning wise. So.
All right, well said.
So let's just start with some of what's going on in Northern New England with the industrial market. So there's soft demand for space right now. It's just, and now it's probably, this was data from March, but there's a lot of uncertainty out there. There's increasing vacancy rates. I read in one article that they're expecting it'll probably peak in later 2025, 2026 for vacancy rates for industrial space. I deleted a word. Significant challengers for investors and developers. That's because of construction costs. So there's not there's just challenges to make, especially in Northern New England, to make projects work. There's been a decline in traditional office space since COVID. Sometimes it's just, smaller office space because there's more remote work happening, or just companies have just, reduced the amount of office space that they're using. Warehousing and distribution has had the highest demand relative to our market. And then I just added in there some of the important industries in Vermont, which we also see here in Brattleboro, but it's manufacturing, technology, and food manufacturing. And we have each of those here in Brattleboro. We haven't had any significant industrial development in the last several years. I think we do have an application for a warehouse at the May DRB meeting coming up. So. And that's off of Putney Road, south of the round.
Not in the industrial.
Not in the industrial district, yeah. So I'm going to try to walk you through this. So in 2020, before we did our land use regulations in 2015, we actually had 2 types of industrial zoning districts. We had an industrial zoning district and a commercial industrial zoning district. Where I put my cursor, I put these little stars. They're the purples on this map. So there's 2 shades of purple, where there's this stars, which right up here is, this is I think this might be the Book Press building here, is the star north of exit 3. Then there's kind of the Frost Place and Burr Street. That was a commercial industrial area. And then Cotton Mill Hill was in a commercial industrial area. And the purpose of that commercial industrial area district was to allow continued industrial and light industrial and commercial uses in areas that were near neighborhoods and the downtown, but then to really push the heavier industrial uses to those other sections like Old Ferry Road, Route 142, and the Exit 1 Industrial Park. So that was before 2015. Now we have one industrial zoning district. I apologize, I didn't put a map in, but you'll see it moving forward. We were trying to consolidate zoning districts in 2015. And particularly at that point, we had a whole bunch of different commercial type zoning districts that like had just very minute use differences. But we also consolidated our industrial zoning districts and we pushed them either towards a commercial or a neighborhood center or mixed use or the industrial. And so you'll see here the purpose of this district was to provide suitable sites for large or intensive industrial uses and limiting use of suitable industrial sites for development that could be accommodated elsewhere in town, or that is incompatible with large scale industry in accordance with the town plan. The use standards were such that we weren't looking to generate customer traffic that would interfere with kind of the industrial truck access and movement needed. And we really did not want uses that were, we wanted all the other uses to be subordinate to the industrial. And so we did not allow residential. If I go back to 2015, actually, the plain industrial zoning district did not allow for residential, but the commercial industrial did. All types of residential were allowed in that one. So anyway, in our, attempt to consolidate our zoning districts so that we didn't have as many, we lumped, we made some choices. And now what we found is that we have some mismatches. The light blue that is surrounding mostly that gray area, that's our current industrial zoning district. So this is Putney Road, north of the roundabout. This is Old Ferry Road. This big building up here, that's CNS wholesale warehousing. This dark gray in the back is a Windham Solid Waste Management District and the old landfill. What Steve mapped here is kind of you can see the lots, but also what are the uses in this zoning district, because this is where we're finding a mismatch for this area. So the light gray is warehousing uses. The dark gray is...
So the light gray it's warehousing, but it's also the light miscellaneous manufacturing. So just the least intense sort of industrial uses. And the dark gray is utilities related, heavier and moderate industrial manufacturing uses, and then also waste management type uses. The yellows and purples are residential and lodging, respectively, with the darker yellow being multifamily and the light yellow being single family. Red is all types of commercial. And then where you see green, that is vacant land. This is an area with a lot less of that than the next few areas you'll see, but there is still actually a reasonable amount in this general area.
So in this zoning district, in the industrial zoning district, the minimum lot size is 3 acres. And I think the area that we're mostly focused on, although we'll probably want to take a good look at the boundary, is this little area of colored red, green, yellow, purple, and green over here. These all front on Putney Road. You've got uses like a credit union, agway. There's some residential here as well. They're all pretty small lot sizes. I don't know if any of them are 3 acres. We can dig into that more. Steve did do some mapping about subdividability.
it's possible that the Agway might just barely get over, but the rest of those small ones are definitely lower than 3.
Yeah. This building right here, if you can see my cursor, that is the book press building, which is we've got it coded as warehousing, and it certainly has some warehousing in it. It also has some retail and possibly some light industrial in here. So this could be one that we think would be better to be in the service center. So anyway, basically our recommendation is to take the full flex field and maybe all the way over here and put this in the service center. We would leave CNS and Old Ferry Road in the industrial zoning district. Late in the day, we were talking about this area, which is on the Dummerston border, right across the bridge that goes over 91. And that's got some warehousing uses. There's a paint manufacturer in the back here, but maybe this is something long-term to be considering service center because, maybe it could be good housing land and better on the border, but, or retail. So for this area, there's just a lot of non-conformities with retail uses that we think would be better to go back to service center. And in 2015, this was service center or whatever it's commercial zoning it was. Did you want to add or are there any questions with this?
Commissioners?
I was
Well, I
gonna say,
love
thanks
the
for the
idea of
recap.
redoing the zoning.
You like it, Lindsay?
Yes. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me the way it is now, so this to me seems a lot more cohesive. And I think that it will serve what is in our town plan better.
I agree too, and thanks for the recap. This is from December when we last saw it.
Dan?
Yeah, will the property owners be consulted or just contacted about this? I'm just curious where you're at with that.
Well, we haven't done any of that yet. We don't typically send out a notification when we're looking at rezoning, but I think it's important here, other than a public hearing or any of that they would have an opportunity. But I think it is important, and there's not that many landowners. So yeah, we could do that.
Also, Sue, were there any other prospects looking at that and just, I guess, waiting to see this to happen, or that maybe it came forward and that now they can take advantage of that particular zoning?
No, I can't say anything has come forward that they couldn't take advantage of here. But, we don't know what didn't come forward because they read the rules.
I could look this up in detail at my own time, but in general, Sue, going from industrial to service center, as far as uses permitted, generally or conditional, generally you'd lose the intensive industrial, right?
Yes.
But some sort of warehousey things and maybe even light industrial or, those are still allowed.
Yes.
But then what you get with service center in general is housing, right?
And retail.
And retail.
Mm-hmm.
Industrial doesn't allow retail.
It has to be subordinate. So there's up here, this is you could have daycare or gyms as conditional uses. You could have things, it's really kind of commercial that's geared towards workers that maybe are in that.
Okay. And could you give off the top of your head just a couple examples of the light or of the industrial uses that would be lost? Examples that we have in town. I mean, I'm not saying that they literally be lost by our rezoning because they're grandfathered in, but I mean an example of a type of business or use that would no longer be allowed.
As far as what we actually see as an active land use and rather than just in the table theoretically what they might be able to do, I think the only parcel that I actually have encountered so far in doing this mapping, which included all of the industrial parcels, So it likely is the only parcel that has anything above miscellaneous manufacturing and light manufacturing. It's the dark gray one that's on the other side of the railroad. I don't frankly know what it is that they actually do on that parcel, but it was categorized as being medium manufacturing. So we don't seem to have anything that is heavy industrial by that standard, unless we're considering things like the waste processing, which is really more of a public utility type use that I think could potentially be cited in other areas.
What did they categorize that as?
Medium manufacturing.
Yeah, okay, so it's fiber mark, and I think they do something with paper products.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going to ask, were there any brownfields noticed in that particular area as well also, or no?
In the gray for sure. Yeah.
Okay, that's why I was asking any potential prospects. Okay.
Yeah.
But I think it would warrant a slightly deeper dive to give a really qualified answer, and probably loop in Brian to make sure that we're doing the proper comparison for materially similar uses, so to speak. But I think almost all of the parcels that you see here would be able to continue their use if they were to become service center.
Yeah.
Can you run the cursor over the parcels you're proposing again?
So it would definitely be this purple one, yellow, green, this red one, this green one, which is the full, formerly known as the full flex field. That's a conversation definitely to
Is that a
have.
separate parcel from their builder?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Potentially coming, this is Book Press. So like there's the park and ride here, Against the Grain is here, the food bank has warehousing here. I think that I think it should probably go service center. It's light industry that's in there, in retail, kind of retail spaces, I would say, and some warehousing. So I would probably draw the line here, because this is all CNS.
Not the light gray and dark gray parcels right below the book press?
This?
No, right, you're over.
Oh, over here.
So I was just looking at it today, so I
Telecommunications.
can remember what they are.
Parking lot and suburban propane.
Yeah, so on two sides of the street there, they're both suburban propane, but one of them is their like distribution facility, and that's the dark gray, and then their actual like open to the public commercial office is the red there. It's that other one that's separated by the panhandle off of Bagway. That is also BDCC's. They're technically the same parcel there. So I guess it is just a parking lot at the moment.
Parking. Yeah.
And then it is the full flex, or whatever their name is now. That's their actual manufacturing further south there. But I think we wouldn't be at any risk of lacking continuity, because I assume that we'll keep in the vacant parcels next to the railroad, and then of course the paper manufacturing.
And then Tom, the only other one we want to spend a little time when we bring a proposal back is what to do with these up here. Do they stay industrial? They're not, none of them are really heavy industrial at this point. I do think one of them is a paint manufacturer, but these two are definitely warehousing.
Yeah.
That's a gym. So we want to spend a little bit more time looking at those, but we'll bring that back with the formal proposal.
Bonnie?
Yeah, a question. If we rezone to service center, does that mean we could actually use empty industrial buildings for housing? I'm just thinking of the recent thing that I saw published about a Costco putting apartments on top of their retail space, and I was wondering if that would be able to be accomplished if we rezone to service center.
Yeah, it would.
As far as the zoning, it definitely would.
Yeah.
I think it's there are sometimes challenges with how the structures are actually laid out when it comes to commercial or office rather. But I think it would definitely be possibly a tricky conversion as far as large industrial spaces, just given the floor plates that you get, but potentially less challenging than an office of multiple floors. We would just have to have that conversation.
Great, thank you.
Just,
I guess the question I wanted to ask too, with that being said, like with CNS, if they wanted to do any more aggressive expansion, which they probably had suggested in the past, and I'm pretty much sure it wasn't possible back then. And if someone wanted to come in and say at another building, and like some malls I notice now have apartment buildings inside their malls or in their businesses indoor, is that a possibility also?
So for that particular property, it would not be a possibility because that would stay in the industrial zoning district.
Oh, okay, I see.
But you know, like if the book press moved into service center, then it would be a possibility there. Which the next slide, I think it's the next one, I'll actually talk about some of these older manufacturing buildings and how they tend to get reused, but yeah.
Yeah, I was just watching it on YouTube. A couple of European
countries
have apartments inside the mall now. They're creating that, and malls that have been abandoned, they're reusing them for buildings and structures that have been there, and they're just adding units inside along with the mall.
I think they did that in Providence, Rhode Island too.
Yes, they did. You're right.
So just to frame things a little bit, because unless we go over, we have 12 minutes left. I think absent objection, right? Or just, I mean, Sue, you're hearing our input and everything, but we're not going to vote on each of these proposals. It's just, commissioners just state any objections or, or issues, or certainly the questions like we're doing so we understand it better. But I think we're ready to proceed to the next one, right?
So this is 142. This is, 142. This is the Connecticut River on the right in the black. This is the setback area. So the light blue here is the rough industrial zoning district. You've got the sewer treatment plant, the Georgia Pacific building where my cursors are. 142 has some trucking all the way down at the end is Sir Sosimo's lumber yard, and then there's also Casella has the former Triple T in this area.
Casella is the 3 or 4 parcels that are at the top there, and then there's the smallest dark gray is a electrical transformer for Green Mountain Power.
Where I am right now, this big green parcel, it's showing as land. It's actually the Zaluzny pit. So it has been gravel pit. But for our purposes, it's just coded as land. And then the red here, this is the cotton mill, which has a couple of buildings. And then next to it is, I think it's the former bread factory that you access the same way. And Cotton Mill Hill is kind of not really seen because the blue covers it, but Cotton Mill Hill Road comes down. So this is all in the industrial zoning district. You might remember in 2015, Cotton Mill Hill was in the commercial industrial. And I just want to point out that kind of all around it, there's a whole bunch of uses, and I want to just go to the next slide so you can see it. But we talked about it back in December, but Cotton Mill Hill sits on a plateau. So down at the bottom here, this is Route 142, and you can see, there's a bunch of industrial, you can't see it from this, but there's a bunch of industrial uses here. And this is Cotton Mill Hill Road, and this is Cotton Mill Hill sits in here. So it's on this plateau that's kind of similar to the cemetery and Morningside condos. And then you kind of go up, and then you got this third plateau that is, a bunch of uses, but a lot of residential uses. So, well, in our zoning revisions in 2015, we put it in with the industrial uses. It's really kind of set apart separately. And yeah.
And hard for big trucks to get to.
Yeah, it doesn't have good access. When you think about what does industrial land need, needs good access, particularly to the interstates. And this is a really challenging one on both ends. It either sends a lot of truck traffic through the neighborhoods, steep, really difficult turns to make, whether you're coming from 142 and going up Cotton Mill Hill, or you're coming down from South Main Street. And so we find it actually is more related to the South Main Street side than to the Route 142. It's also a former mill building, and so the common way to reuse those is to do a mixed use, often with residential in it. And so this sits in our industrial zoning district. It's probably largely non-conforming because it's got a lot of retail, light manufacturing, arts in it. Currently no housing, but just currently largely non-conforming in its uses.
And just briefly, service center wouldn't be appropriate in your opinion for the reason?
Service center, no. I do think that there could be consideration of kind of a mixed use or a neighborhood center, a neighborhood center, a smaller scale there that could take into account there's, the DPW garage, and there's there's some other uses in here that would take a little outreach with the neighbors and stuff, but could be something other than residential.
And I'm not proposing anything different. I just wanted just like a really high level, just like, why is mixed use better than service center or neighborhood center?
Service center is really geared towards like a regional service center, easy access to the interstate, a lot of auto dominated uses.
Okay.
That's kind of the purpose of it.
Right. Yeah. Whereas that is more part of a neighborhood.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, as far as stormwater or flood how is that, because you're going to have to probably, create more, usage in that particular area if you're enlarging it for that type of capacity that you're talking about, Sue. So you said it's down on a plateau going down that hill?
It's not in any floodplain, it's way up. So that's not an issue, and stormwater would need to be managed on any development. Particularly, I don't know, it's probably a decent size, so it would need a state stormwater permit.
Right. And as you were saying previously before about just going up and down that particular hill, making that turn to go onto the bridge, the new one, that would be a challenging as well also, I believe.
Can't that area be taken out of industrial? It seems like it doesn't fit in. The Cotton Hill Mill and the bread factory, seems like they should just be removed from the industrial, because they are more part of a neighborhood there.
Yeah. And then it's figuring, so then the next step there is just figuring out do we, because right now it's zoned residential neighborhood, and so it doesn't quite fit in a residential neighborhood. So then maybe making it a mixed use or a neighborhood center would be the desire there.
The mixed use district, though, one thing to consider is that the floor plate that we allow for is probably a bit smaller, if not significantly smaller than these two existing buildings. And I also think it's a bit more restrictive of how much you can do with commercial space as compared to the neighborhood center.
Yeah.
Lindsay?
Some of this is getting to the question I think I had asked in April that I was hoping we could talk about at a near future meeting about what sort of spaces and zoning we have in Brattleboro that allows for live work spaces.
Yeah.
I think from our zoning, from the perspective of our zoning at the moment, and Sue, please correct me if I'm wrong with this take, but technically nothing's stopping anyone from doing that anywhere except for the industrial hard stop, and then more or less from most types of that arrangement in the RN and the RR and RL, depending on what kind of commercial you're talking about. I mean, if it's like a agricultural type arrangement, then of course you could, but most commercial where you could live and work in the same place would be sort of a home occupation type use. But in the neighborhood center, the mixed use service center, urban center, and village center, you definitely could build apartments over commercial and intend to rent them out to your workers or even if you own the business. I mean, today we were surprised to learn that there apparently is an apartment on site at two of the restaurants that are in the first slide that we were looking at. So it would seem that somebody who works there is living there too, probably.
Then maybe the question is less about the zoning and what we're doing as a town to promote or not promote that type of use of our buildings, because I think it surprises me and a lot of other people that we don't seem to have a more vibrant studio culture here in Brattleboro as compared to places like East Hampton or Northampton, Massachusetts, where they've converted mill buildings into these types of spaces. So maybe that's more the question than it is about zoning. Because I don't know, I look at where we're positioned and the fact that we're on a train line to New York City, and it just seems like maybe something is missing that's not making us a destination for that, when it seems to me like we really should be a destination for that sort of development.
I think I think we're pointing out, this could be a perfect building for something like that, and this is a barrier. So there are some barriers, and we can, pull something together more formally about that for sure.
So I haven't heard any objections about this proposal here, and I guess next time we see it, it'll be, either a mixed use or neighborhood center or proposal, or you'll have a pretty clear like pros and cons of each.
Yep.
Okay.
We can do that. Do you want to go over the last one, or do you want to do that another time?
I mean, commissioners, we're 1 minute left, but it sounds like there's just one more slide. So I'd ask, absent objection, that we proceed with that. Okay.
So the last one is the exit 1 area. So this is over here. So this is 91, this big gray aqueduct, and this is Canal Street. So exit 1's right here. To the south, you have the exit 1 industrial park, which has like GS Precision and FW Web, and I think the VA has, they might be this red building, can't recall.
Completely.
Clinic there. I think that
there
might
was
be
the
them.
Office use nondescript.
So all of these, all of this in this blue area is part of the exit 1 industrial park, although some of this green is kind of tough to get to and would be difficult to develop, but it's undeveloped. To the north, this was all new in 2015 when we were trying to find some larger parcels, because we had a lot of small parcels in the industrial zoning district. So this parcel right here where my cursor is actually has a solar field on it now. And then this other parcel is undeveloped. There's a fair amount of ledge that runs north-south on this parcel that makes it difficult to develop, actually, and probably would require blasting to get a road in if you're coming this way. And then this area down here, this is the Delta campus. So there's Commonwealth Dairy here in the light gray, and then from Omega to the north, and then there's some other, there's been plans for some parcels. This is in the industrial zoning district, but they actually have a planned unit development on there that they can still develop it under. And the goal there was for a mix of residential and light industrial. One of the reasons that we changed it into the industrial in 2015 is because there were some concerns about the truck traffic associated with one of the uses up there, and how on Paul's Road down here in this light yellow, it was kind of really disrupting the neighborhood character with the heavy truck traffic and different shift work. So seemed like it was a little bit more impactful at the time. But I think the question here is, we know that particularly in these parcels, that development's going to be really expensive. Do we need that much industrial land for kind of the more intensive uses? I don't know. It doesn't seem to make much sense. And then also with the Delta campus here, it's like there is a planned unit development that's looking for mixed uses. So do we just make this a residential neighborhood or something? It does have water and sewer to part of it. So anyway, those are thoughts. We don't need to get into it now, or whatever you all want to do, but we don't have a solid recommendation other than I would leave this part industrial. But up here, I don't have a strong feeling one way or another.
Any burning comments, commissioners? Before we just leave staff to think more about that.
Just
Gary?
want to make an ad of this, basically trying to have that mixture of businesses and that, and basically what Lindsay said, having those lofts set up for people in-house. If that's a direction we can go in, that will help offset a lot of the taxes too in the town. So if we create, because we can bring more people, but there's nowhere for them to work, and then with this creating more of a burdensome, if you see what I'm saying, going in that direction, because then there's people will be having to look for more places to find work. So I think creating more opportunity to stimulate growth in businesses here, and what we can do to promote that.
Well, it doesn't seem like the heavy industrial industry is really knocking at the doors to develop the spaces, right? So, like you said, it's soft. It's a soft demand and kind of.
Yeah, we need to be thinking long term, but
Mhm.
how much do we need? And there's no magic number
Yeah.
as to percent of land that should be in industrial. So
Yeah.
it's more about what's right for the community.
Okay, I'll end this agenda item and just have our public comment period that we need to have, and there's no members of the public, I believe, so that ends the public comment period. But if there is, yell and interrupt me. We didn't complete our business because of the lead program agenda items didn't happen, so I need a motion to adjourn and a vote.
And motion that we adjourn.
Second,
Okay,
Lindsay.
and all those in favor, hand up, leave it up. Myself, Lindsay, Dan, Bonnie, and Gary's hand is up. And I think John left a while back because he had something that came up. Okay, good night, everyone. Good to see you.
Night, bye-bye.
Night. See you soon.